We're doing self-concept, and we're doing the use of nurture as a way to repair kids, repair the trauma effects. So this one starts right at who am I? And I really think this is the hardest of the pieces to repair, truthfully. I think this is a big struggle at home for them, and I think this is a big struggle in therapy for them. So I'm going to give you my best thoughts here. And I'm going to start with the cycle of needs, which we saw before. The cycle of needs is when you're a baby and you cry, somebody comes, somebody is supposed to come and give you a bottle or change your diaper and make you happy. And through that process, you get trust and you develop your self-concept actually starts. And out of that cycle comes two main beliefs for kids who are traumatized. I cannot trust others. Relationships are scary, lonely, and unrewarding. And the other main belief that comes out of the cycle when it is not met is I am dumb, bad, stupid, or shameful. I am not a lovable person. And so those are the core beliefs, and they are like to the core, right? The cycle of needs is when the implicit memory system is operating, and that is, again, the unremembered memories. And so, and those are the memories that actually shape our perceptions. So they're deep and they're not remembered. And so that's hard to change. And was recently asked to start compiling a list of like things that kids think that you hear in therapy all the time. And so I'm just giving you the 4 slides that I've made so far. They're not exhaustive, but I think what they show us is, how they actually play out in their thinking. However you think then is how you act. So if you think you are bad, dumb, stupid, or unlovable, then that's how you act. You act bad to validate that thought. So when kids say things in therapy like, why didn't my birth mom give up her drugs for me? There's the implication there is I was not important in some way. The drugs were more important than me. When they say I should have stopped my birth mom from doing drugs, and I've actually worked with kids who have put those drugs down the toilet or tried to throw them out a window, the implication is somehow this is my fault that she did the drugs. They often wonder why you want them. Or I must have been an unlovable baby. That is especially present if the child was born premature or having a medical condition that required a hospitalization or surgeries or things like that. They feel like they were born in some way defective. And so that's why I was given away. I should have been able, if they were abused, they believe they should have been able to stop the abuse. So again, the implication is there's something wrong with me because I didn't stop it. If they were sexually abused, they believe they're really pretty damaged goods. Who would want to date me? Who would love me after what happened to me? And so just going through, picking out the ones related to self-concept, there's many of them. If my birth mom had left her boyfriend or my birth dad, I could be with her. Again, the man was more important. And for international kids, obviously they think they were not taken care of in the orphanage, or they feel some shame associated with living in an orphanage. I was an orphan, I didn't get the best of care, or no one in my country adopted me. I hear that one a lot. So it's a thought process that plays out. Okay, the default mode network, this is just a review. The default mode network is our self-reflection. It's how we gain insight into ourselves as a person. It's where our autobiographical information should be housed. And it should help us process our past experiences and integrate them into our current experiences. And it should help us have a sense of self in relation to others. That's a healthy default mode network. The one on the top is a healthy default mode network. The one on the bottom is the default mode network of traumatized people, much smaller in size, very small sense of self, not connected to any other. So no self in relation to others, very limited sense of self. And it is supposed to kind of really contribute to our identity process and tell us, ask us, who am I? We're supposed to come up with the answers. What matters to me? What do I value? And what is moral? So the default mode network plays a large role in helping us form an identity. Overall, you get this belief system and you've got an immature brain. And so the poor sense of self that all of your kids have really falls out of those two kinds of things for the most part. There's just this negative lasting impact on the sense of self. It's a struggle to form accurate beliefs about self. And there is less ability to recall autobiographical memory. So there's less ability to kind of think through who we are because we're not recalling as much as other people who are not traumatized do. All of you, maybe not quite all of you, but a lot of you are familiar with this kind of a drawing, right? I've given pretty much everybody except for I think maybe one or two families here, a large piece of paper that you can trace your child on and begin to fill your child in, right? Most of them wind up in the closet or under the bed. It would be nice if we kind of hung them up in a place where they could see them. But you can see the first one is a boy. At the time he did this, he was about 13. He'd been in therapy a few years. And you can see where he's really starting to get to know himself. And using I love history. I am sincere. I am cooperative. I am very cool. I love pasta. I mean, you can see where the sense of self is coming along for him after quite a bit of work. The girl on the other side is the same age, has been in therapy at this point, maybe a year and a half. And you can see that's really all she can come up with. And that's really all she could come up with. And it was a very long time before there were more kinds of things added there. So one of the ways I do go about trying to rebuild the self-concept, even though some of these projects seem kind of hokey, like they have an image of themselves that is inaccurate. They need an image of themselves that they can develop that is more accurate. They are very visual learners, and they really have to see things and see them over a long period of time in order to take them in. But the goal would be that this is one way that they can begin to see themselves in a different way than what they believe inside. And this is one last one. And really what's important to me about this one is the face. You see, he gave himself one eye. And he's behind it, holding it up. And I said to him, I'm just curious why you gave yourself one eye. And he said, well, because monsters have one eye. And he said, I'm from a monster. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, my birth dad is in jail for murdering somebody. He was a monster. And I was born to him. And so I'm a monster. And so that's how he chose to portray himself early in the process of therapy. The little pieces of paper, the little pictures on the top, we had people that he knew write to him coaches. He is extremely athletic. He's a state champion at this point in time in 2 different sports. He was extremely athletic. He was actually a good student. I mean, he didn't see any of that about himself, but he did not see any of his accomplishments or talents or anything like that. And so we had other people, coaches, teachers, people from the church, wrote to him and told him what they thought was good about him. And so we put those up there for him to see too, that others see him differently. And we had about, I think, 15 or 20 people write. We had a lot of people write. And so those were little notes that he just sent to people, and that was his design. That's what he wanted to send, and that was a good thing to send. So that's what they are. But that's a good way for kids to realize that others also, besides your parents, see you differently. They see you more positively than you see yourself. So the drawing and notes from others are 2 suggestions. Between the age, here's the other thing that kind of compounds the process in adolescence is between sort of by the age of 11 or 12, the brain begins this process called remodeling. And throughout adolescence, we always say, oh, it's the hormones. We need to get through this stage. My gosh, their hormones are driving them crazy. But really, it's a bigger process than that. It's a process called remodeling. And the brain has to do what is called pruning. It's going to reduce the number of neurons that it has. It's going to keep the neurons it's been using. It's going to discard the ones it has not been using, which really kind of implies that if you have the opportunity, if your child is under the age of 12, you want to expose them to as many different kinds of activities as you can and see what their interests are, so that when we get to remodeling, the brain isn't cutting off things of potential interest to the child. And that myelination is the process that brings the brain up to speed, and the brain becomes what we call integrated. Top, bottom, front, back, left, right, all of those areas work together now. They're all supposed to integrate through the process of myelination. The brain should come up to a processing speed of 10. Many of you have kids where part of the brain is at 10, but the front is not making it. And so the executive function areas are still functioning like a much younger child, which is a big problem going into adolescence. You don't want to be in adolescence with a brain that has the speed of a preschool or grade school age child. We need for the brain to get up to speed. That's what gives us the ability to process information faster and more efficient, because now in adolescence, you're getting harder academics, your social skills are more complex. So you're getting harder information to process. And this is where abstract thinking actually does come online in terms of normal child development. And so if the brain doesn't get up to speed, it will be harder for you to use your executive functions. It will mean that you will probably be a concrete thinker, the large majority of your life. You'll just see things in terms of black and white, mean and nice, good or bad. You have a very hard time seeing any gray areas between the 2 ends of the continuum. If there are any vulnerabilities like trauma, they become more apparent through the remodeling process. And this is why we see traumatized kids decline over time rather than improve, especially when the brain hits remodeling, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's when a lot of kids come in for services, especially 13, 14. The brain is not making its way through remodeling as well as it should. And so what's left after pruning may not be enough to sustain mood or to get the thought processes in as in as good a place as we want them to. You can see bipolar or depression for the first time. And that is really, at this point in time, I am very convinced that these kids need a combination of brain-based interventions and therapeutic interventions in order to heal to the best degree that we can make happen. So we have to add that piece into identity development when you get to adolescence. So your self-concept is developing all along, and adolescence really is the big time when we figure out who we are. And so it's very complicated at adolescence. These are what we call the 7 core issues of adoption. We don't talk about these a lot in adoption. I don't know why. They've been around a long time, but this adds a layer. When you are an adopted person, you have this added layer to your identity development. You have these added 7 issues. Obviously, a lot of loss. Adoption is probably one of the only relationships we build on loss. Pretty much everybody has lost something in the adoption triad in order to have an adoption. Rejection, there's always that fear of rejection. I've been rejected. For some clients I work with, they've been in, 5, 6, 10, 12. Most I've ever worked was a young boy who was 12 who had been in 24 foster homes. It's a lot of rejection. So I have to struggle with this ongoing fear that I'll be rejected again. And that's not just that you'll reject them, but it's that other kids will reject me. They have a very hard time deciding whether or not they really want to have friends, because there's always that fear that once they get to know me, they won't like me and they'll reject me. A lot of struggles with guilt and shame, which are really kind of 2 different things. Guilt is really understanding, oh, I did something that hurt your feelings, but I can go fix that. And then I can feel better and I can apologize to you and you'll feel better. Shame is really, it's to the core. And a lot of kids I work with just have a very profound sense of shame as their entire identity. And so when something happens, when they get caught stealing or they get caught eating something they're not supposed to, that shame just floods them. And I think that's when you probably have some of your biggest battles, because they are in a state of shame and you're just trying to get to the bottom of what happened. But once you feel shame, once you're flooded by shame, you shut down in some way and you go into flight or fight. Lots of grief, as you all know, you're in therapy. We're trying to help them deal with that grief, to figure out how to verbalize it. Identity, we're working on that right now. Intimacy is very hard for them. As soon as they get close to somebody, they have to push away. That's you, that's other kids, that be teachers, it could be all kinds of people. And then obviously you all know your kids are controlling. If I had no control over what happened to me when I was a baby or a young child. And so I'm going to try and control everything right now, even things that make no sense to control. That is the work of Sharon Kaplan-Roja and Allison Davis Maxon. That's, if you want to read an article, I gave you the link to probably one of the best articles on the 7 core issues of adoption. They recently put it in a book, which I have at the end in the resources. But so you're dealing with adolescence, you're dealing with an overlay of the 7 core issues of adoption at work in adolescence. And for those of you who adopted transracially or transculturally, you get another layer. Isn't this fun? You get another layer of cultural issues. You have to prepare your child for life in a society that can have a lot of prejudice and discrimination. We've had that at my own office the last 2 years. My helper, Kayla, as many of you know, is a Chinese American. She was adopted from China when she was 2. And there have been people who have refused to have her do their QEEG over the last 2 years because she was from China. has been a big deal. I've had to go up to the office a couple times over that. So, where one group is included, sometimes then in their lifetime, we might exclude them. And this group is more acceptable to us than that one, or not, and so you've got this other overlay of helping them become a culturally different or a racially, different than your family composition, and prepare them for life in a society that isn't always accepting. And so I have some other resources at the end. There is actually a lot of resources to help people with this particular part of the identity process. This article is on the North American Council on Adoptable Children, NACAC, which was founded by a group of transracial adoptive parents to figure out what they needed to be doing to help their kids manage. And so they always have a lot of transracial and transcultural resources on their website. If you haven't stopped bailing your kids out by adolescence, please stop doing it today. Like right now. Just start letting the natural and logical consequences fall. I cannot say that enough, because if they don't learn to think for themselves, if you're coming into therapy at 13, 14, 15, 16, and they can't think for themselves, I don't know how they're going to function as adults. And when you learn to think for yourself, you feel competent. When you're remembering your own backpack, when you're turning in your own homework, when you're finally deciding to get that room cleaned, and you stand back and look at all of that, that bolsters how you feel about yourself. Those small accomplishments all day make us feel good about ourselves. We do a lot of praising in this day and age. Some of you know I'm a little opinionated. So I don't like global praise. I don't like when we say things like, you have been so good all week, because I think that's the kiss of death. I think right there, they're going to bottom out. They're going to they can't handle being that good, because they don't feel, it doesn't match what they feel inside. They don't feel that good. So when we say you've just been so good all week, I think that you can expect that you're going to have a few days of poorer behavior, because they're going to have to push that away. I think specific praise can work better, because it's a little tiny piece of praise. You did a nice job cleaning your room. You did a nice job on your math test. And it also calls to attention a good quality or an accomplishment. And the more pieces of themselves they can see as good, the more pieces they'll put together, the greater the sense of self becomes. And I don't praise a lot for what is normal or expected. If they come in and they say, oh, Miss Arlita, I cleaned my room, I say, oh, great. I don't give a gold star or a sticker. I can't tell you how many kids are very disappointed at the end of their therapy that they're not getting a sticker. They're kind of like, like new clients are actually kind of like sort of not leaving, and I'm like, no, you can go to the waiting room. Well, I don't get anything. And I'm like, oh, you get happy parents. They just kind of look at me and finally go out to the waiting room, but we don't do a lot of, rewards. I didn't have, I did some driving earlier today, ran a few errands. The police were out. They did not pull me over and say, oh, Miss James, good driving. Here's a little sticker for you. Thank you for being such a good citizen. When I worked for Dr. Cack, the only time that his voice was on my voicemail was if someone had complained. There was never, ever in the 20 years I worked for him, a message that said, I just wanted to let you know you saw a lot of people this week, and, you ran some errands for me. You went out and got those paper towels, just wanted to know, good job. I appreciate it. When I come in, I'm giving you a little prize. Okay. It was always, I need for you to call me back, like right now. there's definitely a problem at the office, and we'd all be like, oh my gosh, what happened now? So I also really try and strive to prepare kids for what is for the future. And I don't think that in real life as adults, we get, all this chronic, constant feedback that kids are getting now. But to some degree, I can kind of laugh and make some jokes about it, but I think we're robbing them of the intrinsic value of getting an A. Like when I got an A, I felt proud of myself inside. I didn't need anybody to give me a sticker to externally keep propping me up. And so if intrinsically we don't help them feel good about themselves, then they just remain in this attention seeking state, trying to get compliments or be pleasing or to achieve some level of perfection so that they keep getting validated from the outside. And that typically lends to behaviors that we don't want them doing. We don't want kids out pleasing. We don't want our adolescent girls out pleasing some boy because she's trying to get this external validation. So I'm also looking for ways to get them intrinsically inside themselves to see the value of themselves as people. If you have a child that can use a device, there are a lot of apps. There are a lot. All you have to do is go to your Google store and type in self-concept, and you too can begin to sort through the like 1 million apps on self-concept that come up. Many of which are based on very solid therapies. I mean, a lot of them are actually very good. They really do help them work on changing the way they think. And they work on helping them manage the triggers that cause them to spiral down into the I am bad, dumb, and stupid thought process. There are many apps, if you're that just text you affirmations all day. And you can go through, like you can go to the app I Am, and there's probably 1,000 affirmations on there. And you pick the ones you like. You can sit with it. You just pick the affirmations you like and the affirmations that go with you. You set the interval if you want to get one every 15 minutes, every half hour, twice a day. And twice a day, you'll get your affirmation. But I think that, I think many kids have this, if you're an infant, even if you're an infant for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, not getting your needs met, you should have in 3, 4, 5, 6 months gone through the cycle of needs probably 50,000 times. So you got your sense of self-validated 50,000 times. At the same time, people were saying all kinds of nice things to you. What a good baby. You are just so sweet. You have Uncle Bob's nose. That is just so cute. Let me tweak that. So you're probably getting 75,000 validations. The moment you roll over, we put it on Facebook because we're so excited. We're recording it. We're telling you what a good baby you are. The minute you walk or say your first word, if you're living in an orphanage, there's nobody there doing that. If you're living in a neglectful birth home, there's nobody there doing that. So I think that these affirmations, are, if you're getting 2 or 3 of those a day, it begins to counter the 50,000 that you didn't get. Like we have to send a big message that you were a good baby as many times as they heard you were not. And so we really have a lengthy process there and a lot of work. If somebody has been told something over and over and over, then we have to tell them probably more times that just wasn't true. I think for all of you, parenting one of these kids kind of undermines your self-concept. You've been successful in other areas in life. You've been maybe successful parenting, typically developing kids, and then you get one of these kids and nothing is working. You begin to feel like there's almost something wrong with you. You're chronically, kids are disrespectful. You're chronically basically told you're stupid by them a lot of the time. So I think you should sign up for the app and send yourself some affirmations as well, because that will bolster your own self-concept.
Hey, Arlita.
Yes.
I wanted to share, so you know what I do for a living. And so today I had a patient
Yes.
who was an adult version of one of these children.
Yes. That's many of those. Yes.
And I'm the one treating them now. And he, all I'll say is he has such self-hatred, self-loathing, and that he drinks. That's all he does to like hide what he's feeling.
Right.
Bad anger issues. That, you know, he's always on the verge of losing his job. Hospitalized. I'm working on it. And so when I talk with him, it's just like watching an older version of what could be of our son if we don't do something. And so, you know, it's scary to see that and see an adult person who they're at the point of he just wants to die. And it's just like, you know, I don't want to see that happen. How can I help you? Etc. So
the depression really takes over. You know, it's not a little self-concept problem. It's a loathing of the self or a shame about the self. That's their core. That is their sense of self. It's not I like myself and then I get triggered and I feel bad or something. It's a chronic, pervasive, I mean, it defines them. It's I am just bad to the bone. I mean, it's a big, deep issue. And really, I do believe it is the longest, hardest of the issues in therapy to change. It is easier to me to get trust a lot of the time. It's easier to get them through the thoughts of abuse. But when it comes to finally getting to some place where I could see myself as a better person, it has been a long, hard effort on everybody's part to get that child there.
well, I'll just finish up with he admits his father was extremely abusive to him, and he still has a relationship with his father, who emotionally, physically, mentally, verbally abused him left and right. And this is like the shell of what he was.
Yes.
And it's horrific with what's left. That literally he's just a shell of a man.
Yes. Yeah. So this one to me, you know, is like we have to tackle this with a lot of visual kinds of things, with a lot of repetition, and really by, you know, letting them fail and learn from those failures until they succeed. Because when they succeed, that's when they will begin to feel good. If your child doesn't have a device, if they can't be trusted, here are some actual affirmations that my clients made in a group. We did a mindfulness meditation group for once a month for 6 months. And as part of that, I gave them each a saying. I went to just Google and typed in, you know, affirmations or positive sayings, whatever I typed in. And I gave them each one on a piece of cardboard paper, poster paper. And I just told them, just draw whatever you think goes with your saying. And so these were kids ages 8 to 12. And I really was blown away by the good job they did on these. Here's, we all need each other. No man or woman is an island. And the top picture, there's nobody there. And the bottom pictures, he's got all his people there, which I thought was I thought that was pretty clever, actually. I mean, sometimes they surprise us. There is really good stuff in there. This one, not all the rainbow colors are the same. They are all different, but beautiful. Feeling different. A lot of adopted kids feel different. Their identity is one of, I am different because I didn't come into my family by birth. And so, I mean, this particular girl picked, straight hair, curly hair, tomboy, girly girl, short hair, long hair, but she really made her point. This one, you have to really look at this one. This was like a 10-year-old, and this kid really seemed like not, not like there was much going on. But then he drew this I thought this was just an amazing picture because the top cars are like, so, okay, so I'm carrying around this hurt. That's taking a little bit of life out of my battery. If I'm carrying around hurt and anger, that takes more life out of my battery. And if I'm carrying around hurt, anger, and pain, it's taking all the life out of my battery. And so he's trying to exemplify the saying, don't hold on to anger, hurt, or pain. They steal your energy and keep you from love. Now, I just thought that was extremely clever. And this girl she got on Google herself and found this piece of clip art to go with this. But fears are educated into us and can, if we wish, be educated out. And I thought that piece of clip art that she picked was very appropriate to go with her saying. So after they put all those up, after they drew all those, I have like 20 or 25 of them. Then we covered the wall with paper. And for those of you who used to come to the Genie Company where my office was, there was that whole wall of paper. And they came and they finger painted it. We just let them have at the whole wall. And we hung them all up there with some other stuff. And that way they could see all of these positive kinds of sayings and affirmations every time they came to the office. Because again, I think things have to be visual and I think they have to be kind of prominent. And I think they have to see them over and over and over, but they're very proud to show people that which one was theirs. And so that worked out well. And so I had a dad who it drove him crazy that his son would not turn in his homework, as it does many of you, correct? Many of you have kids who won't turn in their homework. The number one reason I have asked kids over time, why don't you turn in your homework? And the number one reason is it's not going to be good enough. And so they'd rather not turn it in. So this dad that it drove crazy would get the homework after it was done, was faxing it to the teacher. And then she would fax it back to him with a grade because if she gave it to the child, he wouldn't bring it home. And I didn't say anything. I would normally say, what are you doing that for? Blah, 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 but just didn't seem quite appropriate in this case. So I just let it go. And pretty soon what he was really doing was almost every homework assignment was an A. And he took one wall up in their upstairs hallway outside of the kid's bedroom and he put them all up so that the kid could overwhelmingly see there's nothing wrong with your homework. So he put up literally like 70 pieces of homework and just let the kid figure out they were all A's, except for a couple were B's. And from that point on, the kid did start turning in his homework. He got over that fear of my homework isn't good enough when he saw enough of them. So sometimes it's the quantity of accomplishment that helps them see their accomplishments. And I think that is true. And they are like little. And so I don't want everybody's house to become like one big art project. But if your child, I mean, it is kind of like with little kids, you hang everything on the refrigerator. I would suggest really doing that with older kids. They need to really see what they're good at and what they're accomplishing. And they really do tend to learn best by seeing things. We can't just talk to them. They have to see things. And sometimes, if it's possible, And if it makes sense in a case, I will suggest a search. Because sometimes when they finally hear things from their birth family members, it can shift a case, it can shift them into a better place. And for many of my clients, I think what it's done is it has validated the information we have provided them in therapy where your birth parent was dysfunctional. And at the time we're doing the search, they're old enough to see that dysfunction and then know that what we were telling them was true. So the trust is solidified and the self-concept is finally solidified because now they finally see it really wasn't me. It really was her or it was him. So in cases where we can do that, and like I said, I think when we're either really, really stuck or when that child is healthy enough, either way, sometimes we will try and reach out to the birth family and see if they can be helpful. And it can be helpful. We can't do it in all cases because we don't know where everybody is, or we don't even know who a parent or both parents are, depending on where the child is adopted from. And obviously, I'm a strong supporter of trauma narrative. In adoption, we always call it trauma narrative work, putting the puzzle together. That's been an adoption thing for a long time. Completely truthful disclosures help children figure out, who am I? In order to have a sense of self, you have to have your past and your present integrated. I spend a lot of time in therapy making the implicit memories explicit, meaning we spend a lot of time on that real early part of their life, trying to change those core beliefs that got so ingrained in there. Life books and timelines are important tools. And obviously, you all know that I like having the parents in the room with me. I think that it's important for kids to be accepted by their parents when they say, I want to love my birth mom, and you accept that. I think that's a much better level of healing than it is for them just to tell me. So I do like having the parents in the room, and most of my clients lie. And so if I didn't have you in the room, I could do entire sessions thinking I had done a good job, only to find out later that it was a lie. But really, they're validated by you. That goes a long way to getting them attached to you, and a long way to realizing, wow, they accept what I think and what I believe. Most of you have seen these little charts I do on my Zoom, my handy dandy Zoom whiteboard, which I love, if your child's old enough. So this is somebody I've been working with about 3 years now. He's 11. And he does know what he thinks. And so I said to him, well, then just write it down so we can see it. So he did. I make one mistake and feel like everything I did was wrong. My life is terrible. I am worthless. I get scared I am going to do something wrong and hurt someone. If I'm not here, I wouldn't have to deal with life. This is an 11-year-old already thinking like Peter's adult client. If I just wasn't here, I wouldn't have to deal with anything. A rampage, here's the other thing we learn from these. A rampage will get my anger out. And that is what he does. He literally goes on a big rampage at home when one of these thoughts are triggered. And he just slams and bang, he just slams the door, stomps up and down the steps, swears like a sailor. Unbelievable, the language that can come out of his mouth, and has been since the first time I met him. He cursed and swore at all of us, and then ran out and laid on the windshield of their van in the parking lot, screaming that we were hurting him, trying to get attention from customers coming in and out of the Genie company. Unfortunately, everybody just ignored the situation. So I was like, oh, you do need help. Yes, I see this as I see what you're living with. This is a problem. We'll get you in for some services. So I'm not just looking for the thinking, I'm looking for the way they cope, the way they problem solve, because clearly you can't go through life rampaging you're just not going to be a successful person. On the other side are the new thoughts that he and his dad created for him. He's going to replace one side with the other thoughts. I will feel like a good person when I do the things I need to do, because he doesn't like to do any chores or homework or anything. Mostly normal things happen to me, not these terrible things, not horrible things. He always thinks everybody's mean. Everything that happens is mean. It's really just mostly normal interaction for kids that age. There's never going to be a perfect day. I don't have to like everything I do. I need to learn to do things anyway. And he has those hanging up in his bedroom. I believe they're on the bathroom mirror. They're in his locker, and they're in the binder that he uses most for school. He opens that binder a number of times a day. So he's seeing them wherever he goes. And really, that is what it takes. Again, it takes a lot of work to replace a thought. And most people who are successful at changing their thoughts do have them posted in a number of places, or they post some reminder and they go, yes, that's what I'm working on. Yes, I'm not going to think this anymore. I'm going to think that. And that is what it takes to change kids' thinking. And we probably have to help them write the new thoughts. And I like positive ones. I don't like anything with a not. Like, I'm not going to, slam doors anymore. I really would prefer, I'm going to be a peaceful member of the family. I want it to be something positive, what your goal is going to be. I'm going to be an honest member of the family. I'm learning to be an honest member of the family. I'm not going to be a liar. I don't like the negative sentences. I think most people in cognitive behavioral therapy would agree with me on that too. You really want something that they're a positive statement. And I do this with little kids. I give them a little, like I was a good baby, and I put a little baby on it, or we put something, if we have their baby picture, we put something. This is a cute baby. This is a nice baby. Something very simple. So I do this with kids of all ages. The more you see it, the more you're going to take it in. But so there's the coping skill on this one. If something bad starts, then he said, if something bad starts happening, that was the next session. I said, well, I don't to tell me what bad happens. I don't know what bad happens. Nothing bad happens in his life. But a rampage will get out my anger. There's the coping skill, or the problem solving skill. Here's another one. All right. So this is about computer class being hard. The time frames are too tight. Panic about getting the homework done. I know I will fail because I'm a mistake maker. So this is what this adolescent is walking around thinking. I'm just a mistake maker. So, walk around thinking that, then you're going to act in ways to make that happen. And then that's the behavior you're dealing with at home. So I hit myself, or I hit something, because that's what relieves that situation. I said, well, you can't have a job someday and go hit something if you're a little stressed, or, hit everything in your office. I don't think you're going to keep your job very long. But so there's the coping skill there. So out of these comes not do we just figure out what they're thinking, but we figure out what the coping skill is. And this one is a little more. This one we're still filling in, but I'll give you the gist of this one. So this particular boy, he's about 10, and he ate some pork roast and potatoes that was supposed to be for his brother when he got home from work. So he ate the food. This is also where I really start working with them on accepting responsibility for their behavior, which I think is a very, very hard issue to work on at home, because they just lie and lie and lie and lie. But here I can put it right up on the flip chart. And I usually say to them, now I want you to just say that. And a lot of times they'll even balk at me for quite a while. And I'll say, I just want you to say it. I don't care whether you think it's true or not true. I just want you to say it. I just want them to get used to saying, I broke the lamp, or yes, I lied to you, or, yes, I stole this. I just want them to get used to saying it, and then ultimately actually saying it and accepting the responsibility for it. So he knows he should stop stealing the food. Okay. And this really, for this particular tween, he lives in a family with 6 adopted kids. And he is the only one who does not know his birth mother. She was killed in a drug deal. And that is the belief. Her body was never recovered, but that, to the best of the knowledge, the police believe that she was killed in a drug deal, and wherever they put the body, they put it. But she has never returned. So he does not know his birth mother. We don't have access to her. We can't say for certain that this is what happened to her. We can only go by the police reports. And so I ate the food. I should stop. I get mad that I have less memories because of the death of my birth mom. I shouldn't have gotten hurt as bad. He wound up staying with his birth dad for quite a while, who then was very abusive. And he finally got out of that. And so he gets mad, and his way of dealing with his anger is I eat. So that's his coping skill. Because if we can teach them new coping skills and new problem solving skills, then they won't be in so much trouble, and they will feel better about themselves. If you get in trouble 20 times a day, let's say, or you cause some angry reaction 20 times a day, and we can reduce that to 10, that goes a long way to improving your self-concept. When you're not in trouble as much, you feel better. And kids notice when they're not in trouble so much. That's also why in attachment therapy, we ask people to only work on a couple of behaviors and let the rest go. Because kids will notice that they're not in trouble so much. Right. I mean, you're not in trouble so much because we're just not picking those battles. But it begins to bring the self-concept up. And just by virtue of that, you will get less behavior. They no longer feel the need to act bad to prove they're so bad. So here's what I want to say about coping skills. Really are to reduce stress. Problem solving skills are to solve the problems. They don't really have either. So I just kind of lump them all together. But here's what I want to say. I don't really have any problem with us teaching them to go punch a pillow or go punch a punching bag or whatever. But I do want us to give some thought to that, because it takes a long time to learn new coping skills. It will take several years to teach these kids new coping skills, new problem solving skills, new ways. As I told them, you have to learn to make toast in the toaster. You keep making it in the refrigerator and you're never going to have toast. So it takes a long time. So I don't want to be focused on the pillow, punching the pillow or the punching bag, because that isn't going to help you. If you're with your wife and you get mad at her, you can't just leave and go punch your punching bag, or you can't do that at a job. I'm looking for skills like the rest of us have, where we're in that moment and we can kick something in here in our brain and change and keep ourselves calm, keep ourselves from getting fired, keep ourselves from telling somebody off. In this day and age, keep ourselves from shooting somebody, perhaps, I don't know. But I'm looking, for the skills we all use. So I always think that parents are the best place to start. Obviously, you all have pretty good coping skills, some pretty good problem solving skills. Pick 4 or 5 that are particularly effective for you. Put them on a big piece of paper, hang them in a prominent place. Just keep redirecting. Okay, you went on a rampage. You could have done these 4 things over here. Oh, I see you're getting angry about your birth mom. Go over there, pick a coping skill. We're gonna we're going to work on getting something instilled in here that's helpful. So many of us count our blessings. The top picture here, we did a group on feelings, and we had each child make a blessing jar so they could actually see them. And then the goal was, if you come home from school and you're mad, or you come home and you're sad, you need to sit down with your jar and you need to regroup that one event, in comparison to these 50 blessings you have, we don't need to let that one event, ruin our whole day. And a lot of us really do that in our head. If your basement starts to flood or your washing machine breaks, we all kind of automatically start in our head going, well, it's just the washing machine. Okay, I can go to Lowe's. Thank goodness it's not the dryer. Thank goodness it's not this, I'm not dying of cancer. But we do all begin to do that in our head. And pretty soon, we're kind of leveling out about whatever the situation is. I encourage kids to be like cooked spaghetti rather than spaghetti that comes out of the box. Spaghetti that comes out of the box is rigid. You have to learn to be more flexible. You have to be like cooked spaghetti. Again, they have to have these visuals. Okay, I do 1 to 5 with beans. There's my 1 to 5 right there. We were doing this in a group. 1s are small things. 2s are a little bigger. 3's a little more. 4's bigger. 5 are the big things. I don't expect everybody to run out and get, 20 pounds of beans. You can do it with a piece of paper, put a 1 on one end, a 5 on the other, a 2, a 3, or 4, and say, okay, so this thing that you're so upset about, is it a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5? They often want to put it on the end that's a 5. I make them readjust that and get it where it really belongs. That's really like a 1.5. And over time, this helps with the concrete thinking. I want to give them the 2, 3, 4 between the 1 and the 5. I'm trying to build some level of abstract thinking, because people who can see the gray areas tend to be more successful than people who cannot. So I'm really trying to just build some level of abstract thinking and give them some better way of coping, so they're not always over the top about every little thing that happens. So 1 to 5 can be quite helpful. And again, you can't do it for like 2 days. You have to do it over like 3 months and really let it sink in. I tell kids all the time, you can change the channel in your brain just like you can on a television. And you can, if you're stuck on something, you can put a different picture in there. And I say to them, if you want to, go draw 4 of your happiest memories with your adoptive family. And when you need to change the channel, pick one of them and put that in, if they're not able to come up with their own picture. I think community service, when you can find it and when they're old enough to be allowed to do it, is very helpful. Again, I think it helps them count their blessings and see that their life is pretty good. I am trying to get them to see that the family is a source of comfort. You can rely on your family. You can talk to your family. And so I like to put pictures of the family in their school binder, their locker, their desk, wherever. Some of them have a little key ring with the picture in it, and it's on their backpack. I encourage them to learn to vent, that we all do that at the water cooler. And venting is a way to keep your day-to-day feelings from building up and then blowing up. A mom that I worked with who was, she was very creative. She made this little pouch. She made this piece of paper. It had all these little light bulbs on it, but they were really pouches. And inside were different problem solving skills. You could go pick one. If you had something was going on, you could go pick a solution. And she had fun ones in there too, like go yell at your brother or come out in the kitchen and kick me. And then she had, and they would pull those out and they would go, well, I can't do that. That one's not right. So they saw, like, they learned like, oh, my coping skills are really goofy. And then they would pick until they got one that they could actually do. And I thought that was a very good, I just thought that was a great solution. And of course, I do encourage them to talk get to always talk about those feelings, which would be the best one to me. But so, but you can decide, what you would like for them to kind of use in moment situations where you have to be able to either calm down or change your mood. And this one to me is the same as natural and logical consequences. Like the sooner we start this one, the better off we are. It's only getting one slide in this entire presentation, but I look at this one slide as very seriously important. And this is our very last topic. This is using nurture as a way to rebuild the self-concept and the trust. Okay? So a lot of you had kids who missed getting some of the cycle of needs. The good news is we can go back and repeat pieces of it and recreate some of it. And you will rebuild what should have been built in the beginning. And so the cycle was made up of eye contact, touch, talking, warmth, smell, and motion. That's what goes on during that attachment cycle. Those like kind of 6 things. Nurture is an entitlement, not a privilege. Nurture is not something that must be earned or deserved. And I do know that you are all nurturing porcupines. Whoops, I went too far. So I get that. They're not easy kids to nurture. They don't take it well. Your job is to invite them every day to join your family. Their job is to decide to take the invitation. So you can do lots of things. You can just stop and have a staring contest. Lots of kids will play peekaboo with you. And you could do that for 5 minutes and let them go. You can look at each other, name the ways you match. You can hunt for candy kisses. Every time they find one, they have to come give you a couple seconds of eye contact, then they can have the Hershey's kiss. You can do face painting. You can write "I love you" in the mirror. You can wear a tiara, which I think there are a couple people. I think there are a couple people in this group who have worn tiaras. Nothing gets them to look at you more than when you have a tiara on, and you can go to Amazon and you can pick from about 1 million tiaras. I know in one family it was very noticed. So I think it's good to wear a tiara. They really need that reminder, like I'm called the queen or the king, whichever you prefer. And you have touch. So, you've got play. You've got games you can play. We talked about play last time and the value of play. Nurture is just a little bit more kind of a specific play. And it's also, they're just short little things that you could do a few every day. They don't, they're just incorporating them into things you're doing anyway. You can style their hair, scratch their back, hand on the shoulder. That's about as much as some kids will tolerate. Can hold hands while you're saying grace before meals. And do clapping games. A lot of older kids will do clapping games. Or there's a 14-year-old in the waiting room the other day with a 15-year-old, and they were doing cat in the cradle. They had just learned it. And they sat out there doing cats in the cradle like as though it was, like they were like telling me like, we're doing this thing called cats in the cradle. I'm like, oh, yeah. Do you want to learn? I'm like, oh, I think I know about it. It's always so funny to me, like when they learn something, they think we don't know about it. You can do clapping games. I often do patty cake or one of those, kinds of things. And sometimes these kids who want to, like, I don't know, hug you and squeeze the life out of you, or you get home from work and they charge across the living room and basically like knock you over to hug you, or they hug you like a tree, like they don't really put their hands right, or they're hugging up around your neck, so you're like pulling you down. I'm like, oh, you've got to do 10 hugs a day, every day between now and the next time I see you, until you can get this right. you don't even know how to hug, so we're just going to assign that as your homework. And we make them work at trying to learn that right. So you're going to make a game out of stuff. And you've got talking, right? Talking. There's all kinds of talking goes on. You're telling a baby everything. I can remember being in J.C. Penney's a number of years ago, and this woman, she had a little baby in a stroller, and she's holding up 2 shirts, and she's saying to the baby, "Do you think mommy would look better in the red one or the yellow one?" And so we're always talking to babies. You can sing together. You can do nursery rhymes. You can read together. You can talk in the car if they will talk in the car. You can trace a word on your child's back, see if they can guess it. You can make faces and then you can see if they know them. And a number of years ago, a family came in with an adolescent quite in crisis. He was very, very disconnected from the family, had done lots of like bad things, was involved with the court. And so we were talking about using more nurture and trying to get him reconnected. And the dad went home that day and pulled out all their family photo albums from the time they had him since he was about 1.5 years old. They were a very family oriented family in the sense that they did a lot of, they would just go to the beach and collect sand glass. They never really did a big vacation or anything like that. They just did a lot of family activities, local art shows, just different kinds of things like that. A lot of gardening, a lot of landscaping. They had a house on a large piece of property. They had put up a zip line and they did a lot of zip lining in their own yard. They actually had 2 or 3 of them at the time I met them, but and what he did is he put like 10 or 12 at a time in a PowerPoint, and he set it in the kitchen so you could see it at the dinner table. And he just put it on slideshow, so it just kept going. And that probably generated more conversation than anything I've ever seen, because this kid and the brother that they had also adopted, who was in better shape, really enjoyed looking at those pictures. And it really was a very good way, like, "Oh, I remember that," or "We did this. Yeah, that was cool. We should do that again." And so I thought that was one of the most creative ways ever to get kids talking and at the same time get connection. That was, he was really a rather creative person. A lot of what I recommend does come from my clients. And then I also, if you want talking, I think you have to do no device zones or times of the day. There's warmth. My mother always used to warm our mittens in the dryer when it was cold outside, which was always well appreciated. Back in the day when we walked to school, I'm that old. So you can have a hot chocolate or a coffee or even soup as an after school snack, and you have a special blanket that you share while you're watching movies. Smell, lots of things you can do. Smell is the most powerful of our senses. Smell is in the limbic system, not where the other senses are in the brain. It's located separately. So smell triggers things. So we're trying to get smell to trigger good things like baking bread or popping popcorn, which you can then throw at each other and see if you can catch it. So that gets you movement, food, and smell at the same time. One small activity that you can do for 2 minutes. See if your kids can catch some popcorn, right? I think on the worst day ever, when you're really having a bad day with kids, I think you should have food delivered. There's nothing like when the pizza comes in the house that it fills up, or Chinese food or whatever you like. When the smell of food comes, I think it really begins to change everybody's mood. Where you can pick a scent for your family and have matching lotion and candles and stuff like that, so that kids associate, wherever they are, they associate that smell with you. Will reverse some of the triggers from bad smells like cigarettes or alcohol, things like that, that they were more familiar with, or institutional smells. I think there are kids who truly urinate around the house because they like the smell of urine, because it's an early smell that they were very familiar with. They sat in their own diapers. whether they were in a neglectful birth home or an orphanage, there was the smell of urine around them. And I think that got in their brains. And sometimes I think they crave that smell. And food. I would encourage us to argue over food as little as we can. You're not going to change some of their food preferences. And sometimes I would use food to my advantage. You have a root beer float for lunch just because, and make them wonder what you're doing. Has mom lost it? She's letting us have a dessert for a meal. I'm very big on lunchbox notes, and I'm very big on mailing notes. I think kids like to get mail. I think when you cook with kids, when they will come to the kitchen and cook with you, I think that food is a way that we all attach. Food and food preparation, we all attach around that. Go out to dinner with your teen and take their friends. See what that's like. And you can cut sandwiches into fun shapes. Those are just some ideas. But all of those contribute to repeating that cycle. Right? Movement, and blow bubbles. There is something called theraplay. And so here's what they would do. They would say, okay, I'm going to blow these bubbles and you're going to pop them. They're going to tell the child how they're going to pop them. You're going to pop them with your finger. You're going to pop them with your nose. You're going to pop them with your foot. So they're going to add a listening component and a component to the game where you're going to follow some directions. So mom is going to blow the bubbles. Okay, I want everybody to pop it with their pinky. And everybody has to pop it with their pinky. So it's a fun way, but it's a fun way to build in some compliance and some attachment. And that's what theraplay is all about. You could go fly a kite, catch fireflies. I'm looking for just short, little 5-minute fun kinds of things. You can shoot hoops. Obviously, dancing is very good for the brain. Here in Ohio, we make a lot of snow angels. And then there's also this thing called kinder music for the people that have kids 10 and under. It's often, they prefer younger children, but if you have immature kids, they will often let them into the kinder music group. Touch and rhythm are the two main ways the brain builds itself in the first year of life, touch and rhythm. So kinder music is a room full of kids, each with some kind of percussion instrument, maybe tambourines or whatever, and they learn to do something in a rhythm or around, but it's all about rhythm and movement and rebuilding the brain. And there's a lot of research to support that kinder music really equals play in terms of what it contributes to development. And I would have to agree with that, given the amount of rhythm that they put into it. And so you can go to their website and you can type in your zip code and up will come kinder music groups, and they are all over the place. And they have a lot of their research on their website now. And they've expanded into other activities as well, and you can go to 2 or 3 kinder music groups. There's no limit, and they're 6 weeks. They're not a big deal. They're not a big time commitment. But kinder music is good. There were some for the people in Ohio. There have been times when the counties have actually covered the cost of that. If you want more of those ideas, Parenting the Hurt Child has a whole chapter called Cinnamon and Applesauce. Everything that I have on the slides pretty much came from that book. And there's probably another 125 ideas in the book that go along with repeating the cycle. Okay, and this is one of my final slides. And there's only 2 more, plus the resources. We can be mad about the behavior, or we can have fun with the behavior. And I do try and have fun with the behavior. And we've already talked about the paradox and the joining in, so I don't have to go through it again. I'm just only going to reiterate that joining in I really think joining in is probably your most powerful parenting tool. If I'm gonna pick a strategy, I'm gonna pick natural and logical consequences, and I'm gonna pick joining in. Acting like them for a short period of time with no anger or sarcasm, just doing it for fun. Don't end with, see, how does it feel? Do you like it when I do it? Just have your own temper tantrum for 30 seconds, or eat like a pig at the table. Get your food all over yourself. I mean, make a big mess somewhere. Just act like them. It can be kind of fun. And then just walk away and let them wonder what's happened to you. And I've had parents do all kinds of things. I've had people show up at school in big bunny slippers. When their kids are embarrassed by them, they just show up in big bunny slippers and help their kid to their car. I mean, just all kinds of things. When Dr. Keck's son used to put holes in his wall, when he was angry, he'd kick holes in the wall. Dr. Keck would make faces. He'd get paint and he'd paint. He'd make the hole the mouth, and then he'd put eyes and a nose, and he'd give it hair. And oh, his son would be so annoyed over that. He said, well, it's your artwork. I just want to help. Want to help you with this. His son would never, ever, he would always say, James, we went to the grocery store. What do you want for lunch? James, and so he just started like one week on Monday. He picked up his lunch. He left. He never looked at his lunch. And when he got to school, there was a green pepper in the bag. The next day, there was like a kumquat or something. Third day was some other, following Sunday, James said, are you in the grocery store this weekend? Dr. Keck said, yeah, I go every Sunday. He said, oh, well, I have a few things I wanted. So point made in a fun way. This one mom whose son did all of his chores halfway. She gave him half of everything in his lunch for a couple of weeks, half a sandwich, half an apple, half a cookie, until he finally said, what is going on with my lunch? And she said, oh, I don't know. You're smart. You'll figure it out. And pretty soon he was like, is this about the chores? Is this because you always tell me I would do everything halfway? She said, oh, it could be. It might be. And so he did his chores. The first time he did his chores the whole way, she gave him a whole lunch. So this can be just totally fun. And I think it really, they get it. They, and they learn from it in a very fun way. And I'm going to tell you, Dr. Keck's son is now like 26 years old. And every time he communicates with me on Messenger, he tells me that green pepper story. I have heard that green pepper story. He used to go to workshops and speak with us, and he always told the green pepper story. I have heard that story. James, I know the green pepper story. I've heard the green pepper story. What is it you need, or what is it you want, or whatever, but so we can be angry, or we can start having fun. If you get yourself locked in a battle and you decide it's unwinnable, just say, I changed my mind. I don't really care about that anymore. End the battle, move on. Occasionally, no matter how long I do this, I occasionally get myself in a battle I can't win. And my very last piece of advice, where do you go from here? You can study the array of tools that you now have available to you. You can look at all of those solutions, okay? You're going to pick a couple of behaviors that will also address developmental areas that you want to most influence with your child. I'm going to select a couple of tools that fit with your personality and your child. You're going to practice those 1 or 2 strategies until they become routine. Then you're going to select 2 or 3 more, and you're going to practice those until they become routine to you. And then you're going to just continue to expand that repertoire. The more work you do to figure out why they trigger you. The more you engage in that parallel healing process, the more healing you will automatically get with your child. It just works that way. It's like a set of dominoes. The further the parents move, the further the kid moves. It's like automatic. So you can do that and get quite a bit of healing. And I would read as much as I could online. I think there's a few podcasts now. I actually have a family coming in for the weekend from another state. And I think there's one or two podcasts that she's found that she thinks are pretty good. And if she thinks they're pretty good, I'll pass them on because she's a good judge of that kind of stuff. But in essence, like the more you know, the less you react. The more you can understand trauma's impact, just the less you will react, because you go, oh, that's his brain doing this right now. I don't need to do anything about that, but wait for it to settle down. And I think the more you read, the more you want to change your parenting, because the depth, really what I hope I've conveyed in 5 weeks is a set of tools, but I really hope I've conveyed the depth of what you're kind of dealing with and why it's important to get started and the big job you have ahead of you. But I do also encourage us, let's look where we came from, what we don't have anymore. If you look ahead too much, it's a little depressing sometimes, but look back. Always, I stay very focused on the progress. And here are our resources for tonight. It's a little book called The Simple Guide to Understanding Shame in Children. It's really quite good in its description of shame and how it gets triggered. And Sharon Kaplan-Roja and her partner there finally wrote a book called The 7 Core Issues in Adoption. It's a very long. I don't know why they wrote it so long, but it is still a more in-depth with examples of how those 7 core issues of adoption play out in day-to-day life and in identity development. This is a trauma book that I recently was finally able to get a hold of. It does come, it is available now on Amazon on a more regular basis. I like it because it's got some things in it. It's got like a whole chapter on sleep and why these kids don't sleep well and some ideas. It's also written by a pediatrician. And so it's another good resource, I think, for professionals in your life. There is a book on helping to create a life book. This is probably the best one. I like especially the beginning of this book, where she's really helping you prepare yourself for the trauma narrative work, what that really means for you as parents to engage in trauma narrative work. And I like a lot of her ideas for a life book. I basically just have kids draw out their story, put it in a 3-ring binder with all of their other documents, but some people choose to scrapbook their life book and things like that. These are Sherry Eldridge's. These are 2 of her books. I think she has 4 or 5 altogether. 20 Things Adopted Kids Wish Their Adopted Parents Knew is done a bestseller in adoption for years. And then her other 28 Things Adopted Parents Need to Succeed. I think there's also 20 Life Transforming Choices Adoptees Need to Make. She also has a website. She speaks all over the country. She is an adult adoptee. And so she gives us the perspective of an adopted person. And that's why she's so popular. She's one of the only adopted people who really writes and speaks about being adopted. There's Parenting with Theraplay, which gives you the gist of Theraplay. I do see on their website they have some webinars you can participate in, where you could learn some of the other Theraplay activities. That's as good as repeating the cycle of needs. The Out of Sync Child Has Fun. These are all sensory activities. All of you, I mean, neurofeedback is trying to help repair the sensory system. Occupational therapy with a specialization in sensory integration is trying to repair the sensory system so that you can process information better. And this particular book, again, has a lot of just short, fun activities that will activate the sensory system. And that is the same as repeating the cycle of needs. So you might find things in there you like, better. They're all good things to do. That is just talking about adoption. It's a book on how to deliver the narrative and talk to kids about the 7 core issues of adoption. Dear Birth Mother is currently the most popular book on search and reunion. Oops. Here's for the transcultural, transracial families. Some of the books available. Transracial. Touching Spirit Bear is the story of an adolescent. It's a novel, a fictional novel, but it's a story of an adolescent who gets arrested and eventually finds his identity and lets go of his anger. It's a very good book. It's a Chinese cultural book. Paula McLean was a foster child. She was in foster care with her 2 siblings. She teaches now at Case Western here in Ohio. She wrote a book called Like Family, and it's her experience of moving with her sisters through different foster homes. And the way she writes is very vivid. And it's a very good book. Finding Fish is the story of Antoine Fisher, who grew up in Cuyahoga County here in Ohio. And he was never adopted because he was in foster care like before we really did adoptions, but his foster home was abusive, left the foster home, he joined the Navy, and then so the book goes on the story of how he healed and recovered from his past and has moved on in life. And the movie is Finding Fish. It was made into a movie with Denzel Washington. And these are 5 children's books I forgot to give you last time, all that are just very focused on adoption. And those 3. And there's your websites for tonight. There's a nice, I mean, obviously you can go to Amazon or make your own lunch notes, but Lunchbox Love Notes has some really unique Lunchbox Love Notes. And some of them are like sets of trivia, and they're kind of fun. There's the Kinder Music website. PACT is also an organization that was created by, I think, both of the creators, Beth and Gail. I think they were both I think they both adopted transracial, made their families transracial. But on that website is probably the greatest collection, numerically, the greatest volume of articles on all different aspects of transcultural and transracial adoption. And they also run camps, transracial, cultural adoption camps kids can go to. The Kids Health website, which is, I like the Kids Health website. There are articles on there for parents. There are articles on there for kids, and there are articles on there for teens. So if your child won't listen to you about internet safety, go there, print out an article, leave it laying around, they'll read it. Like I use those articles on there that were written as if they're talking to a child or talking to a teen, for kids who are much more resistant to taking any type of advice. You can go there and get an article on like anything and everything. They're very well written, they're very well reviewed. They have teams of professionals who make sure all that information is current and accurate. And so you can leave them laying around, and I think that kids will read them. And so it just really offers a good way to send messages to kids who are harder, who don't want to listen to any of us on all kinds of topics: dating, pornography, social media, medical conditions, taking your medication, going to therapy. I mean, the array of topics is absolutely mind-blowing. And so that concludes our 5-week program. And there's some advice on where you go from here. Not one person has chatted with me tonight or asked asked a question. This is your final opportunity. I have to tell you, last night I did the group from New York. They asked like 1,000 questions. I'm doing this for you guys, but I'm also doing it for an agency in New York where I consult on their cases. I'm doing 5 weeks with some of their parents. And they had like a bazillion questions. I was like, oh, wow.
So I was going to tell you, I said for the group, when I play, it's fine. It's, short game, whatever.
Yes.
But there never seems to be any carryover. It's like you play and then it's run away off to the room, or then when it's time for a meal, then it's arguing about the dishes or whatever the issue is. But there's never any carryover. And so when I stopped being chief entertainment officer, it's like we're back at square one.
Mm-hmm.
It
Well,
doesn't make me want to continue.
No, I can sympathize with that. Sometimes I feel the same way. Like I can try really hard and then I just lose my, like, sometimes they're just so not fun to be around that at the end of the day, it's hard to want to continue to want to be around somebody who doesn't want to be around you, no matter what you do. So sometimes you just lose your ambition to keep going. I mean, you eventually get it back again, but it is hard to want to keep going all the time.
right. Well, you can take breaks and go back at it. I mean, I don't expect everybody to consistently be like all excited with these activities, or you can just do shorter activities for a couple of days. You can leave 2 Hershey's Kisses on their pillow and you've done something that day. So it doesn't always have to be, I would say, I think the focus, Margot, on your son is getting a greater level of respect. And then I think you'll have more success. And I would probably, I think in both of your cases, I would take the computers out of the bedrooms.
And we don't have any computer in the bedroom, and we take the phone away.
Right. Where is he sitting when he's looking at YouTube all the time? Speaking
Mostly in
to,
his room.
I'm sorry, what are you talking to us?
Yeah,
yeah,
mostly in
on
his
his
room.
phone. Oh, on his phone.
On the bed.
Okay.
On his bed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine's in this room.
I'd probably have to do some device-free time.
Yeah, that's what Rob and I were just talking about doing.
Well,
It's just becoming such an issue.
We're just gonna have device-free time every Sunday from 1 to 3.
I think we need to do it like every night by a certain time, because I mean, he's been home since 5:30. He had dinner with us for 15 minutes and he won't talk to us the rest of the night.
Well,
It's a babysitter.
And I'd probably join in with that. I probably wouldn't be talking to him.
I know.
Only I do it for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
I do it until they get so sick of me doing it that they figure
You
it
mean
out.
so sick of not talking to him? Just nothing?
I mean, I would just join in with that. I just wouldn't talk. But I do it like, sometimes I do with kids that age, I kind of do it for a couple of weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, because I just want them to know. I think it has to be a little bit bigger that I cannot talk to.
Yeah, I struggle then with that. Does that mean like in the morning you don't say goodbye to them, or does that mean that when they come home from school you don't say how was your day? I mean, I feel like I struggle with then where's that nurturing part where I'm still a mom?
Well, that can come back after the 2 or 3 weeks. Because sometimes being a nurturing mom to these kids is different than what we expect it to be.
So then that's what I need is permission to not be the nurturing mom. I struggle with where that, that's where it is. So
well, it
when
is
you're not,
but it is very nurturing to let it clear to him that it's not okay not to talk to you.
so
And
in the
that probably
morning
means
it's not.
that he won't get a lot of things because you're not even answering him.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be nice about it. I'm not gonna be mean about it, but I'm not gonna put up with Like, I'm not going to put up with people who live like a boarder in my house. You're not boarding here. You're a family member. You're expected to spend more than 15 minutes at the table and then run to your bedroom. I suppose we could always decorate his room like an orphanage if he just wants to live like he's still in an orphanage, maybe some drab green orphanage. They were all painted drab green. You know, in Margot's case, I guess my focus there is really trying to get some respect. And I think you could alternate. You could play with him one day, John could play with him the next. What could John do with him for 5 minutes?
Well, it seems like whenever we've been the playful parent, it's fine when we're being the playful parent, but as soon as we stop being the playful parent, then it's, you know, there's nothing. There's no interaction.
Your child, there isn't. I'm still gonna try and do things with him, or I would try different things to see. I think he does like the gardening with you. I think he does like being in the kitchen. I think that one might be your bigger way in if we're going to get in him. I did think he did a little better in therapy tonight. He actually made a true, genuine admission. I mean, something is a little bit better in a way. So you're not getting any carryover, but I think the carryover really comes from, I just think our biggest goal with him is to get a better level of respect. And sometimes when I'm working on respect, you get just one statement for 3 weeks. I'll be happy to do that when you're nicer. I'll be happy to do that when my bucket's full. Like, I would shut his whole life down, I think, for a few weeks. And again, I'm very nice about it. But he is disrespectful. Janet's child is disrespectful. Kim and Joe have had one disrespectful child. Your child, Jim and Peter, is disrespectful.
Arlita, then can you clarify? Because I just wrote down a whole bunch of ideas that we were supposed to do to help nurture. Do I do that?
Sometimes
do I do that now?
Sometimes when I'm working on respect, that's all I'm working on. Because I think you can nurture the heck out of somebody. And as long as they're disrespectful, it will never go anywhere.
Yeah.
No, I've nurtured the heck out of him. That's for sure.
You don't, in any relationship you have, be it your neighbors, your coworkers, your spouse, whatever, if you don't have a level of respect, there's no relationship. And so it's hard. I think respect is harder. I've just like we kind of used to work respect a little bit differently, but we are just competing with, like, we are willing to drive them to activities even when they treat us like trash, because we want them to have those opportunities. And so it's difficult to get respect, or the coaches aren't going to let them play, or, blah, 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 blah. But at some point, I do think we have to kind of make a choice and say, I'm going to take a month, or I'm going to take a few weeks, and I'll be happy to do that when my bucket is full. And I'll be happy to do this when my bucket is full. Oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing in my bucket, period. You don't have to say I'm not driving. There's just nothing in my bucket. So whatever they're asking for, they can just stand there and figure out they're not getting it. I'm nice about it. You're being fed or providing whatever, but I'm not going to be talked to like this. I'm not going to be treated like you live, like my home is just for the amenities. There are people in this home, and we're going to be treated in a way that makes us feel like people. And then as soon as you do it for 2 or 3 weeks, they straighten up a bit. Then as soon as you give them one little thing, oh, right back they go. I don't threaten, remind, warn, or bright. I'll be happy to do that. We just start over again. And it's typically that second time. So then everything else is on hold for a while. Because there's, to me, I'm gonna really focus on that building block that I need then for the other pieces to come along. And I'm happy, and I like the sentence. I will be happy to do that when you. There's a me and a you, and we do things for each other. So I like the sentence over and over and over. I will be happy to do that when you. If you want to remove your privileges for the next 3 weeks, that's okay with me. I'll be happy to provide them, but not under these circumstances. And then when we have a better level of respect and they know we really mean it, then we do all the, then we can implement other things that we want to.
So just to clarify, because I need specific guidelines.
Well, there's no
So,
specific.
I know, but I'm just asking. Does that mean like, I just struggle with that. So you say
I
good
know,
night to
everybody
you,
does.
you say good night to your kid, or you just literally ignore them? I have a 17-year-old, just so you guys know I'm not abusing like a 4-year-old or something.
Well, you can say goodnight, but we don't have to
Okay.
make a big fuss and foo-foo and everything.
Right. This is hard to ignore your kid, even though they're acting like.
I'm not asking you to ignore them, but I'm not really asking you to ignore them. I'm asking you to stop doing things for them when they're treating you like trash.
No, I've really stopped. It's just, I've stopped
Good.
a lot.
So then I'll be happy to do that when you.
Mhm. I've said that a lot.
Good. And Rob has, but it has to be both parents have to work together, or things are not as successful. I mean, this getting respect, both parents have to really be making that statement. When the dad does it, it has a lot more meaning than when the mom is just doing it. I see everybody's elbowing their husband now. Like, like 4 people just elbowed their partner. I mean, I wouldn't do it if my partner wasn't with me on it, because they have to hear it from both people every day. I'll be happy to do that when you.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
I had a kid recently call the mother a fucker as she was literally taking him to his sports practice. And she texted me and I said, you need to turn the car around and go home. And she did. Later that day, the husband called me and said, who do you think you are? My kid won't play on Saturday now. I said, well, if it's okay with you for your wife to be called that by your child, then you need not be coming to services at my office. Because I'm not going to have a parent call me and ask me what to do about that and say, oh, well, we really want him to play on Saturday, so I guess it was okay. But they talk to people like that. I have many kids on my case, though, who talk to their parents like that, who swear at them, who are so demeaning. Just the tone with which they speak to you is clearly, you are stupid, is what they're saying. The tone implies the stupidness of you. I mean, how many of you feel like when your kids talk to you, they're telling you, like, the tone sounds like you're talking to me in a very demeaning way?
Yeah.
You should not
Yes.
be made to you should not be putting up with that. That's just my opinion. I really feel like if we want an attachment, then at some point we just have to be willing to bite the bullet, and whatever falls out of that, if you don't get to play on Saturday or you don't get to some practices, I don't know what to say. But if you're not going to be respectful, I don't know how we're ever going to get an attachment, and I don't know how you're going to function in this world. I'm really very big on this reciprocity and the respect. And I don't really feel like I used to have to be this way, but I feel like we are undermined by others who put demands on us, no matter what we have to do to fill that demand. And that is not practical or realistic. If your kid can't play because as you turned the car around, that should just be supported rather than punished.
No, the coaches should totally be like, you acted like that, you're not playing or whatever, but
I mean,
they
but
don't treat us like that.
right, when the pressure is on us to just keep driving them,
Yeah.
and then we have to,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jim.
I mean, it goes back to what you were saying with natural and logical consequences, that ultimately driving back home, clearly in this case that you were describing, the father did not support the wife's
Right,
decision to take the child home, and then the natural consequences that, yes, ultimately he's going to miss practice because he missed, not practice, he's going to miss the game on Saturday because he didn't go to the practice, but he didn't go to the practice because he's bad mouthing his mother in the car. I mean,
right, and
that's
my
the
opinion,
consequence. So,
right, and I really feel like the coach and the dad should support that. You're not playing today because you called your mother a fucker.
yes.
Not even,
Right.
not connected to the practice you missed, but if you want to bench him for a game, bench him to support. I mean, everybody, like, we don't work together anymore. I get that society has changed since I was a child, but there was some value when you did something wrong at school when I was a kid and you got off the bus or you arrived home, every mother on the block knew, and every mother on the block told you. So you didn't do anything wrong because you didn't want to hear it from 20 mothers. But we've lost that. But I think, what it taught us was there's morals and our values in our family, and then there's this greater sense of morals and values. There's a sense of values and morals in our community. And I think we're kind of losing that to some degree because we feel this pressure for them to participate. But again, they're going to be living in your basement when they're 40. They're not going to be in the coaches. No, Peter, he's not going to be living in your basement. Where they're, I hate to break it to you, but when they get arrested, guess who they'll be calling? It isn't going to be the coach.
Yeah.
It's going to be you. When they can't make it at college, many of my clients, I mean, it's getting much better with the layer of neural feedback. A lot more kids are able to go to college and stay there. But before neural feedback, they went socially, they could not figure out how to fit in. They got so depressed. The college called you and said, you have to come get your child. We can't support them as much as they need. You have to bring them back up. You're the one that's going to get those calls. And so, I think it might require some conversation with a coach or, whatever. And then they'll say, okay, well, I'll make them run extra laps. Well, that's not showing respect to you. The respect has to really, you have to get the respect from them. Their coaches have to get the respect from them. And often they know how to do it. They're just not doing it for you. Most of my clients are not at school talking to their teachers like they talk to you. Some are, but the large majority are not. They're not at sports talking to their coaches like they're talking to you. But you're the one providing the sports fees. You're the reason the kid was annoyed with his mother was he thought that she had all of his gear ready and in the car. She thought that he had all of the gear. He thought that the mother had all of the gear ready, and she said, oh, you have to go get your stuff. And that's when he got mad at her, like as though it's her job to make sure he has his soccer stuff. And that's when he got mad at her. But I just feel like that you have to get the respect they have to get, that you mean it. And then we just have to make choices about what we're going to do about all this other stuff they're involved in. If that's, trying to have a conversation with coaches and teachers, sometimes that goes well and sometimes that doesn't. But bottom line is you're going to be the people that have to deal with this beyond the age of 18.
So Arlita, I guess I struggle with all of this with the pieces of if we're doing these things at home and then they go to school and say, I want to do this stupid sticker chart. And you say, I don't want to do this stupid sticker chart. Then you look like the bad guy because you don't want to help your kid with their dumb sticker chart.
Right.
So I mean, really, I mean, it's ridiculous because it's like, has anyone ever figured out that these dumb sticker charts need to like go fly off somewhere and never come back again?
I
But
actually
yet
think
that's the idea. So if
the only
that's what they're
reason-
getting for 6.5 hours a day,
Right. That's
and then
okay
they come
with me.
home and you don't have a sticker chart and
That's
you're doing
okay.
completely different,
Right, but
then
that's okay with me.
where's there's a disconnect there.
Right, but if I just let the school go until February, they will call and ask for help. Like I let the school run their gambit of things until they decide it's not working. And then they will ask me for help, and then they will use the help. And as long as we're doing what we need to at home, it will counter that. I think the only reason, the only people who should use a star chart are you yourselves. You should put up a chart. And like Joe can be giving Kim little stickers for every time she didn't react. And at the end of the week, they can see who has more stickers, Kim or Joe, and then one of them gets a little prize. Kim, you get to pick out of the sticker box. Look, you didn't react 15 times this week. Or I think that, and let them figure out why you have a sticker chart up. Why are you giving yourself stickers and not me? But I mean, because we're not going to change the school. I'm not going to get the school to join in. I'm probably not going to, maybe a paradoxical intervention. I have had teachers who will tell them to, this girl who always rolled around on the floor and kind of flapped like she was a fish or something. And so the teacher did actually say to her, oh, we have 10 minutes right now. Do you want to roll around on the floor like that? And she never did it again. So blown away the teacher said that. I mean, I really think it just totally blew her out of the water, the teacher said. So, but that was a teacher who reached out in January when she really realized she couldn't get this kid to do things. Strong, like another school called me yesterday, a local school. They have a very difficult child, and they have figured out that what they're doing is not ever going to work. It was part of a functional behavior analysis, and they've all kind of given up on it. And so that meeting will now be productive. So I wait them out. I will offer help. I'll say, if I have content, I'll say, if you need help with this, let me know. I have some ideas. But if I try and give them to them in September, all they're going to do is say, I want to wait and try my own stuff. So I'm not worried, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, whatever we do at home will work. We will get our attachment. Attachment is a V. It goes from parents to siblings to anybody else who's commonly in your home, to the neighborhood, to the community. And so as long as we're working on our attachment, it is eventually going to spread, and you're not going to have those behavior problems at the school. So for Margot and John, I would recommend, I'll be happy to do that when Margot was talking about getting a bucket earlier today. I think that's a good idea. Because then all you have to do is look at your bucket, set it down, go on about your business. Let them figure out there's nothing in there. Probably not getting what you're asking me for. Don't have something in my bucket. And that's a very quiet way to just, pick it up, look in it, flip it upside down, like kind of nothing in there, and walk away. So I think you'll be okay, Tina. You'll just do what you're doing at home. We're going to work on holding her because she's like you have a baby in a very big body, but it's a baby. And I think she'll carry over eventually to school. I mean, their pattern, the pattern is the pattern. We all woke up one day and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe that came out of my mouth. That's exactly what my mother said. I vowed I was never going to be like her. Right? We all get a pattern of behavior. So the pattern of behavior is I'm anxious. In your case, Tina, I'm anxious about relationships. I don't feel like a good kid. And so everywhere I go, I act bad. The more we change that at home, the more it'll just carry over, and then you'll be out of all that school stuff, I think, in another year or two. And just let them. And I don't offer suggestions really until they're more willing to have a real conversation with me and put it in some context of why these things would work. And now you can refer them all to my 5-part free trauma-informed parenting program.
And this was just, I just have to share, this was a frustrating piece. And this wasn't just about the kiddo that, this is about Talon, my other little guy. I had a
Right.
parent teacher conference and the teacher had shared that he was lying. She said, I just want to let you know that Talon is lying. And I
Mhm.
said, wow. I said, that's typically not like him. I
Mhm.
said, now my other one, yeah, but not so much
Right.
him. I said,
Right.
what is he lying about? And she said, well, he says that he has 7 siblings. And I said, oh, I said, he does. I said, he has some half siblings. And she goes, oh, and she knows, she knows his story per se, not all, but
Right.
I said, yeah, I said, he's working on his story. And she goes, yeah, but he's been lying more than just once. And I said, oh, I said, well, what else is he lying about? And she said, well, he says he lived in Mississippi and he was born in Mississippi. And I said, oh, I said, well, that's where he changed his name, where he wanted to be called something different. And I said, he probably relates that to born, birth, he's trying to
Mhm.
understand, he's 6.
Right.
And she's like, oh, wow. And I said, so maybe, I said, if you think he's lying, I said, maybe just email me and ask
Right.
me what he's lying about. And he's really
Right.
not lying. I said,
Right.
he's really just trying to understand his story.
Right.
And then she goes, well, I've noticed some of these different things. And, do you think I should put them on a sticker chart? It's like, I said, I tried to be, as the teacher I am, I tried to respect. And I said, I'm really not in the classroom with you, so I don't know him in the classroom like you do. I said, as a classroom teacher. And I said, if you really feel that a sticker chart is necessary and you can't control his behaviors without a sticker chart, I go, maybe that's something that you need to think about. But I bet you could probably go in your teacher toolbox and have a different strategy to use. But that's what I mean. Like this where you're literally talking to colleagues that I'm like, you're telling me that my child is lying, and he's not lying. He's trying to tell his story, and
Right.
he's getting from you that he's lying.
Right. Right.
And it's so sad that that's where we're at, and that's what you're up against. And this is not, again, I work in the same school district.
Correct. Well, this is every school. Behave that is, traditional behavior modification dominates. I don't really believe we're going to change that anytime soon. There is a trauma-informed school movement that is gaining a lot of momentum using a lot of other types of strategies. And hopefully it will continue to spread as people realize more and more kids have experienced trauma. But in the meantime, I think we're stuck with the sticker charts. And in some ways, I just don't really care what they're doing there. As their job is to educate and educate to the best of their ability. That's a big enough job with some of these kids. And if their policy is detention, suspension, whatever, I just say, yesterday, I think I said to you, Candace, recently I said to Candace, what if your child, her son's being disrespectful? I said, whatever the policy is, they have a policy about that. Let them implement their policy. I think they should use their policies. And then if they decide their policies aren't working, then I think that's when they will reach out. That happens like every February. For the most part, not all schools, but pretty much every February. You just see where people are kind of like, now they're starting to go, well, that sticker chart isn't working, or that reward system isn't working, or those detentions are just not working, or those suspensions are not working. But that can sometimes take a long time. It's just not, it's how we're all I didn't know anything about joining in until I happened to be at a conference where Dr. Keck was speaking. It's all I learned in graduate school was a sticker chart. I'm not joking. It's what they teach us. It's what we're supposed to use. And until you seek out something non-traditional, like, you just don't learn it. But I was a placement worker. I was placing kids. And I had 22 kids in pre-adoptive homes, every home I was talking to, all the kids were lying and stealing. And I said, either I can't decide that a family is a good family, either I have selected 22 crappy families, or there's something wrong with these kids. And I was banking on the fact that there was something wrong with these kids. And my agency agreed. Like, they had never placed, I mean, they were an infant adoption agency who took on this special needs adoption, and they were like, oh, this isn't like going well, is it? I'm like, not really. You know, is yes and no, whatever. I mean, you know, people were calling a lot and everybody was trying to figure it out. And so we just started going to conferences. It happened to be 1995, and that was the year Dr. Keck's book came out. And we all went to hear him speak, and we all left that going, wow, there is something else. Like, who is he? He started talking about the lying, the stealing, the property destruction, the blah, blah, and we're like, oh, that's exactly what we're dealing with. But you never hear, you know, we talked about Harlow's monkeys for like one day, but nobody ever said you could use attachment theory to do anything. So, I mean, that was a fluke. Had I not been at that conference, I don't know when I would have run into him. And then ultimately I came here. So, you know, I think the trauma in Rose is just being so crabby here today. She is the love of my life, but she is having a grumpy day today. But I just think I worry more about what we're doing at home. And I really only say something to a school if I feel it's necessary. And then usually I put it in writing. But when they reach out, I will have a conversation with them. And that's, I think, the best we can do. And we wait for the carryover from your house to the outside world. And it will happen. Anything else?
So I was just going to share that. So yesterday, one of my challenges that I have, that's not one that Peter has, but is that I tend to want to kind of over-explain when I'm upset, like how he can improve and all that. And I realize that I have that as an issue. Yes, I do.
Explain. Oh my gosh, I've not noticed.
And so, but yesterday, and I got really, I did get upset, but I didn't get really angry about it. I did do some explaining. I said, you know, look at this kitchen, everything that he did, like he went through and made mess after mess after mess, and he just made different things and left packages undone, packages open. Just, it was like a little tornado, I guess. And so
that was bait.
Yeah.
That was bait.
And so, yeah, and so he's baking all kinds of different things, and I did get frustrated, but I told him I was very upset, but and he couldn't figure out necessarily why, which I can, it's such a challenge for me why. And I know it's because even though he's 10, he's still thinking like he's 3 or 4. So he's not really like grasping why I should be upset at certain things. And so, but anyways, then tonight I had to be gone for 2 hours, and I got back, and he had actually, I was shocked because he had all the counters and everything was cleaned. Like he actually took the time himself to clean, because I didn't like clean up after him yesterday. I'm like, you know, it's not that I wanted it to be there for weeks, but I said, you know, I'm not cleaning up after you. I'm not doing all this. This is not my area to clean. And so, anyways, and I came home tonight and it was all cleaned up, and I literally was like, I didn't give him a prize. I didn't, I mean,
Good.
I did thank him for cleaning it.
Right.
But then
And that
I almost instantly went to, like, in my mind, like I was convinced he wanted something, he wanted to
yes.
prize, or he wanted to go to the store or something, and he never asked for anything except that he was just doing it to clean up the mess. And I was like, I was a little taken back a little bit. So
yes, they're manipulative. They usually do things when they want something.
But he never came forward
Good.
asking for anything. So
Good.
so we just left it at that, and we had dinner, and then that was it.
Good.
So
Good, very good. I'm glad you left it for him. Your other option is to do it and charge them a lot of money for that. Kind of a mess. Good, that was good. I'll send you a gold star later. Okay.
no, I don't want a star, but thank you.
I think
All right.
Tina, can you send it to Tina? I think she would love to have that.
Yes. For it's got to be a sticker star.
No stickers. You guys are gonna find my address and just send me stickers every day.
Hey, we might join
Just
in with
another
that,
one to
yeah.
make you smile.
Oh, please send me stickers. I'll get them to Tina's house. We'll join
Yeah,
in.
it's on Amazon.
I'll come over in my
Take them
front
to that
yard.
teacher and say, here's all the stickers you need.
I just got a bunch for work.
I see a child peeking over Chris's shoulder. I don't know if he's still there, if he left.
Do you want to come back and say hi? He just got home from band.
Huh.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw my note. When CBT came up, I was talking to Ryan. I said, oh, they're going to talk about CBD.
No.
Not the same. Not the same.
No, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Right. Although sometimes the CBD can be helpful when working with CBT.
Now, I don't think that would be good for me to publicly put on my website. You know, tried to only put things on there I thought I wouldn't get, like, you know, arrested over or ethically slapped on the wrist or anything like that.
Right.
Oh. And thank you all for participating. And
Thank
you
you.
all obviously have access to me if you have any questions or want to brainstorm anything. And so probably by Friday, I'll have all the solutions to you, all the resources to you. And next Tuesday, I will be able to record part 2 that I forgot to record. And then I'll send you all a full set of all 5 links.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're
Great,
welcome.
thank you.
So much.
You're welcome.
It really has been great.
It was fun.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was nice meeting
Good
some of you
night.
guys.
Yes,
Nice
thank
meeting
you.
all of you.
Bye-bye.
Hey,
Good
Good
night.
luck.
I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.